What's up everybody, Superdukes fan here for another car review. This is of course the 2000 Chevrolet Camaro SS. Huge thanks to Mark of the NJ Camaro YouTube channel for providing me with this very nice Camaro here to review for you guys today. So about the 2000 Chevy Camaro SS, well, this was, after the refresh that they did a couple years before, and looks really good. I mean, I just love the wedge shape of these that they retained here, throughout the whole fourth generation, and it looks really cool still. It's just a very large, intimidating shape, and it looks like everyone expects a muscle car to look really. This one has the Ram Air hood scoop here, which certainly helps as well. This one is actually a limited edition SLP model as well, so you see a few other little things like the black centerpiece there to the grille and a few other little things here and there. And overall, I mean, this one is really mint too, very low mileage, and just looks great. You got the chrome wheels, and overall, I just think it's a really cool looking shape here. And as they get older, I think they actually are starting to become more and more cool looking because they're so different from everything else out on the road. First, for the interior of the 2000 Camaro SS, well, it's pretty typical of the stuff you'd expect from GM here in the late 90s, early 2000s. Anyway, though, first things first, sitting down in these seats, nice leather wrap seats here. I like the kind of ridges that they have here, and they actually feel pretty nice. Now, they don't have a lot of bolstering to them, so you can kind of slide all over the place here in them, and it's very smooth, soft leather as well, so that doesn't help with holding you in place at all, but it's okay because they're still very comfortable seats. I actually like the shape of them. As far as the back support goes and things like that, they do feel pretty comfortable, and so overall not bad seats. Next though is the steering wheel in the Camaro here, which is a nice leather wrapped wheel. Actually has a really nice 9/3 grip that's even actually a tiny bit lower than a 9/3 position here, but just feels really great in your hands. You even have the volume and seat controls here on the wheel, and overall just it's a fairly large wheel, but again typical of the era, and overall a pretty good wheel. Next is the gauges in the Camaro here, which are very clear, easy to read, large, again, typical GM gauges, like a lot of the other stuff you see, from this time period from them. And so, all the basic stuff you need, but it does have some additional, like the voltometer and stuff there to give you a little bit more information than your typical gauge cluster. And so overall, pretty good set of gauges. Coming over to the center of the dashboard here, you just, again, a car from 2000, very simple. You just have your CD player here, which I believe was actually had a changer that you can put multi-CDs in there as well. But again, other than that, just basic radio stuff, and then you have your 3 climate control knobs. Again, it's really refreshing being in some of these older cars compared to what we have these days with a million different buttons. This is so simple and straightforward, and you can do it with your eyes shut, which is really nice. So yeah, just a few basic knobs and switches, and so very easy to use. As far as door space in the 2000 Camaro, it's interesting. So over here on the doors, first off, you have a nice large map pocket. Obviously no bottle holder or anything, but no one had bottle holders in 2000, so pretty good there. Coming over to the center here, you do this very deep little cubby here next to a power outlet, kind of cigarette lighter thing, and he also added an auxiliary jack that did not come with these. He custom wired that up to work with the CD player there, and so nice to have that there. And then otherwise, you just have this little coin tray here, or ashtray, whichever you prefer, right there, and then you have one cup holder, and thankfully the owner told me where the other one is, because I was like, man, only one cup holder. But if you go down here and slide this out, that's where your second cup holder is, and so nice to have that there, and works just fine. And then coming to the back, you actually do have 2 more cup holders here for the rear seat area, and so plenty of cup holders actually. But then coming forward again to the center armrest, it is nicely padded a little bit here, and feels pretty good, for, again, something. It's still, I mean, you're talking about a fairly, outdated GM vehicle here, so all the plastics and stuff are hard, again, typical of American stuff from this era, so no one should be surprised there. But like I said, the armrest is actually, pretty soft and not uncomfortable for resting your elbow on. And you open that up, and you have a pretty deep cubby here. You even have a coin holder, and plenty of space in there to, fit sunglasses, just about anything you could really want to fit in there. And so overall, a nice usable space there. Another cool thing I have to mention about the interior is this one has the T-top setup, which is obviously something that was, you know, famous in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, and really awesome because they fit in the trunk there so easily, and so it's just really easy to use, and just really nice, even if you don't take them off, to have basically a glass roof here. It's just a really cool thing that I kind of wish would make a comeback, you know, with the T-top thing is really cool. But anyways, mentioning you know, the rear area here, first the back seat, which is actually pretty decent. Now, a funny thing, my roommate in college actually had a 96 V6 Camaro, and I took many road trips sitting in that back seat, and so it's not unlivable, but you know, it is tight. I'm 5'9", me sitting behind myself, my knees are right up against the seat back there, but you know, it's not really cramped, it's just they're right up against the seat back. Headroom though, I still have about an inch or two of headroom, even with that sloping roof line there. So you know, like I said, livable, not ideal, but certainly usable in a pinch, and the doors open very wide, so it's very easy to get people in and out of the back seats as well. Again, not something you want to use every day, but you know, every once in a while, no big deal. And then the trunk in the Camaro, again, these 4th gens with this hatchback, it's so versatile. That hatch opens really large, you know, typical like you see in the Corvettes and stuff, and so tons of space there. The rear seats even fold down, so I mean, you could haul probably a dinner table in this thing, no problem. And even the trunk area there itself is very deep as well to fit the, you know, those T-top things. But if the T-tops are up on the roof, then you have even more space there in the bottom portion of the trunk, and so just a very usable space. And so it actually makes the 4th gen Camaros here very practical as well. All right, so start up and go for a drive. The Camaro here has a typical GM key for the time. There is a separate key for the door, but this one's for the ignition. So you just slip it in, and it roars to life. All right, so setting off in the 2000 Chevy Camaro SS. So this one has a little more rumble than your standard Camaro, and that's because, like I said, this being the SLP limited edition model, it also has a couple performance enhancements here, including the SLP headers and exhaust, which give it a much more throatier tone. You also have an SLP intake here with the ram air hood that's pretty sweet. And but honestly, I mean, it has a nice sound to it, but it's not overbearing or, you know, super loud or anything like that. And overall, it actually sounds really good so far. Other things, you know, though, about first time driving one of these, well, the clutch and the shifter are actually fairly easy to use. A lot of these early 2000s, late 90s muscle cars, really heavy clutches and really a lot harder to drive, like Fox body Mustangs and stuff like that. I mean, it's like a leg workout just using the clutch. This, it's not nearly as bad. I'd say it's, you know, much lighter than a Fox body or something like that. So it makes it more accessible and easier to use and easier to learn on for those, you know, trying to drive manual for the first time and things like that. It's actually a really nice setup. Other things to note though, visibility in the 4th gen Camaros here is really actually quite good. You have a very large windshield here. It's very aggressively raked, but you do have a, you know, pretty large windshield. View out of the sides is great, although you do have small side mirrors, and view out of the back is great there with that large glass hatch as well. Just cruising down the road so far here though, it's actually a really smooth ride, and it actually doesn't feel too big on the road either. It actually feels smaller than like the 4th gen Eclipse that I just reviewed recently. So, you know, fairly easy to place on the road, doesn't feel intimidating to drive really in any way. And overall, it just actually feels really good, very accessible and easy to drive really. All right, so let's turn that onto this back road here and see how it does. Roads are a little bit damp, but here we go. Man, those gears are tall! Man, that sounds awesome! And that's actually really planted. I was expecting it to want to fishtail on me or something, but it's really planted. But yeah, the gearing is so tall. It's the gears, you just leave it in gear and just put your foot to the floor and just let it do its thing. But it's got really good mid-range punch too. I mean, so you're dealing with an LS1 V8 engine, the legendary LS1 here. And so Chevy claimed they did like 320, 325 horsepower, 345 pound-feet of torque, but they were actually way underrated. A lot of them are doing even more than that at the wheels. So, you know, it's safely more like 340, 350. And so this one, you know, with the headers and exhaust, certainly helps it to breathe. This one also does have a tune from Diablo, and so they have, you know, gone over it and made it run a little bit better as well. But yeah, it certainly feels strong. of fun, I gotta say. And so yeah, it feels pretty light so far too. We're gonna go around some corners to get a better sense of that, but these are only 3,400 pounds or so, it doesn't take a whole lot of power to motivate these things to go really quick. These days 340, 350 horsepower doesn't really sound that impressive. That's a Ford Focus RS, but back then that was really good power, and even to this day it's still plenty quick. These things will do 0 to 60 around 5.2 seconds, that'll keep up with a lot of stuff with even a little bit of higher horsepower, really. So no slouch at all. And I mean, these things, especially for their age, they're still really impressive to this day. Another thing you really just enjoy so much with older cars, especially, but in particular with this Camaro here, is just the just analog feeling of the steering and the brakes and the pedal, even the throttle response. The throttle response, I mean, you can actually feel it like pulling a cable. There's no drive-by-wire stuff here. It feels so organic, and I love it. You feel so much more connected to the driving experience. But as we go around some corners here, taking it a little bit easier, but yeah, it's doing a pretty good job so far. So we got 275 wide tires in the back there as well, which helps it, keep that back end planted. And it's amazing, but these actually came with a traction control system, which is something that was pretty new at the time, and so that actually helps to keep you a little more in line, but it doesn't kill all the fun either. So it's nice that they included that for a little bit of a safety net here, to make it a little bit more accessible as well. But it's just, this isn't even a car you use as a backroads attack weapon. I mean, it's a muscle car still. It doesn't have an independent rear suspension. You have a live rear axle back there. I mean, and I know a lot of people like to criticize that stuff, even from the Mustangs that have the live rear axles before the 2015s. But really, live rear axle isn't that bad unless you're going over really rough roads or hit a big bump mid-corner or something. But otherwise, I mean, it handles great still. It's not like it's wildly unpredictable or uncontrollable or anything like that. It feels really planted, actually, and just feels awesome. But yeah, this car, it feels really rewarding, just easing it through the corners, and it just, I don't know, something about going around corners in this thing, it's very almost relaxing. Not that that's like a good or a bad thing. It's very different how it just kind of takes the corners very flatly. There's really no body roll. Again, much better than Mustangs of this era. It doesn't sway all over the place or anything, and I'm actually really impressed with how this thing's handling. All right, so let's do another acceleration here on a straight road, just for the fun of it. You can even feel the whole front end kind of lift up a little bit, and it's so dramatic. I mean, you can see me just being thrown back in the seat whenever you floor it. It's just, and on the overrun there, it sounds great too. This thing just, I love the way it sounds and the way that it feels. Listen to that. Another thing that I just find funny for some reason is the shifter. How much the shifter moves around in these older cars. It's just like, I mean, I floor it, and the shifter's doing its own dance. It's like it's this independent living thing just moving around. It's kind of funny. But again, that's just one of the things that was common with vehicles of this time with manual transmissions, and I love it. But yeah, it's great. And so now we're on, the open road, on a straight road. This is really where these things thrive. I mean, I could see driving many, many hours in this thing comfortably. It's a great cruiser. Like I said, very stable and planted even in corners. So when you're out on a straight road here, I mean, it really feels very solid and really nice to drive. But yeah, I love how long the gearing is in this. I mean, it doesn't make for the fastest, accelerations. I mean, it's plenty of power and it still feels fast, but it's great because you don't have to constantly be shifting 55 times in order to get up to a normal speed. And the owner actually informed me this has the same gearing setup as the Viper, and so that helps, with the longer gearing there. And I love the way that it feels here. It's the T56 manual, by the way, which is one that's been commonly used by several different manufacturers, and always feels great. This one also does have a Hertz shifter on it as well, which is something that came with this SLP package, and so the shifter feels great, so I love it. Everything's very easy to use. Like I said, even going around corners and stuff, rev matching is very easy to do, and so overall it's just, again, it's a really nice thing to drive. And another acceleration. go up to 5th gear, and this is actually a 6-speed manual, so I can even go down to 6th. And you hear a slight rumble, but there's no drone. I mean, for headers and a full exhaust, this does have catalytic converters, but for headers and a full exhaust, to be this quiet on the highway, that's a really big accomplishment, honestly, especially for a car of this era that doesn't have tons and tons of sound deadening. It's a really nice setup, I gotta say. But yeah, it's just a really great highway cruiser. Another thing I really love about the Camaros here is the brake pedal in these actually has a really nice feeling to it. It's nice and there's a good amount of travel to it, but once you get to the meat of the pedal, it has a good amount of bite to it, and so it feels very reassuring. I mean, again, these aren't like Brembos or anything, you know, mind-blowing, but for factory Camaro brakes, they actually feel quite good. A slip there coming out of corners, and again, like I said, it's a little bit damp, but this, like I said, this thing just really handles so well, and it's just a joy to drive. And honestly, I am a Mustang guy, but the 4th gen Camaros here, I much prefer the way this drives over the Mustangs of you know, similar era. The Fox body and the New Edge Mustangs, heavier clutches, harder to drive, not as thrilling with the power band either, and this just feels really awesome. And even though, you know, it has the live axle and stuff, it still is a great thing to go around corners in. But I mean, you know, it still is at the end of the day a muscle car. It's not going to feel like a 90s Honda or anything like that going around corners, but it does a really good job. And I think, honestly, I mean, because this one has totally factory suspension, you put springs or sway bars or something, it could actually be, you know, a backroads warrior as well. So really impressed. And the great thing, obviously, with 4th gen Camaros, there's so much aftermarket support. And I mean, the LS1 motor is one of the most popular, you know, motors of all time. So there are so many parts you can get for these things, so much that you can do to them. And like I said, they're underrated from the factory, and they just have all kinds of potential. And so a very great platform to start with if you want to build something as well. But honestly, I don't think there's really much you even need to mess with. I mean, sure, there's obviously, by modern times, you know, you can get, you know, basically almost the V6 Camaros these days have close to the same amount of horsepower and stuff. But again, just having the V8 sound and the burble and this old school feeling that you can't duplicate in the new cars, and much better visibility than the new cars as well, that's one thing. It's just a great package. And the great thing is, especially like now, this one's an SLP super low mileage one here, you know, less than 40,000 miles in this one, so really mint. But obviously these things are quite old now, so you can find one for a very good deal. And you know, it makes for a great first car, great starter car for those that want to get into, you know, something fun, something with an awesome sound, and still really great performance without breaking the bank. I think this is a really great choice. So yeah, huge thanks once again to Mark here from the NJ Camaro YouTube channel for allowing me to review his Camaro here. I'm so glad I got to do one that was, you know, mostly stock, very mint condition, to kind of get a good feel for what these are like, because so many of these things are modified so much already. And so I was really happy to be able to sample one the way that Chevy kind of intended it, and I think it's a really great package even from the factory. But yeah, so anyway, huge thanks once again to him. Thank you guys very much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Take care.